started with the main process area civils, we obviously have to start with the deepest excavations that are performed on the site. And in this instance, that's the seawater channel that collects the water once it's passed across the vaporisers, and then such that it is then channelled and flows through the site back to the harbour. The seawater channel itself is about 3 metres deep and about 2.5 metres wide, and is sized for the full flow rates that will be reached when we're at maximum send-out. Those particular boxes were delivered from Japan, and they contained elements of the open rack vaporisers. A very, very specialist piece of equipment. The transportation was undertaken through the night time because of the particular size of the consignment. Some of the boxes were actually 8 metres wide, which required a full road closure from the point of unloading at the docks around to our terminal site. Here we are in one of the storage areas on the site, where after the delivery of the vaporisers they'll be brought here, and we've started to strip the external packaging, which exposes the steel transportation frame, which keeps the fairly delicate items secured during the sea transportation and the road transportation here. What happens now is that these items of equipment are prepared to be lifted into position, and that first involves upending the unit in the steel frame, such that it can then be stripped, the crane attached to it, and then it lifted into position. It's a very simplised piece of equipment, and basically just consists of banks of fin tubes with a bottom header pipe where the liquid goes in and the top header pipe where the gas comes out. And simply all we do is cascade the warm seawater over the unit within its support structure, concrete support structure, and then the seawater then disappears back to the harbour. There are other types of vaporisation, but here quite good for the environmental is we've chosen the option of open rack vaporisers, where we don't have to fire any fuel to heat the water. So there's a ready source available at the power station, and we just take that heat from that water, pass it across the vaporisers, and then discharge it back into the harbour. In addition to bringing the water to the site, we also have to bring power supplies in. The location of the power station is quite remote from the terminal site, and therefore we also have to cross underneath the harbour. To bring the cables to the site, we've employed a technique called horizontal directional drill, which would drill underneath the harbour, and then we would install these 7 plastic pipes which would form the conduits for the future installation of the electric cables. We take in total about 25 megawatts of power to power the large seawater pumps, and also therefore we have a number of compressor units and high pressure pumps on this site, which obviously takes power, but we virtually have no emissions from a point of view of burning fuels. All our power and all our heat is produced from one of the power stations. The recondenser vessel is probably the biggest vessel that we have on this site. It was actually manufactured in Holland and transported by road on its side. On arrival at site, it was then picked up from the transport using 2 cranes and lifted into the vertical position, whereby it was then swung round and placed onto its foundation. Subsequently, that vessel will be surrounded with various structural steelwork and access platforms and pipework, and then ultimately insulated, as it will contain a minimum liquid level of LNG, such that when we want to recover some of the boil-off gas from the process units, that is then passed through that vessel, such that we reabsorb some of the gas back into the liquid to minimise our emissions. Apart from the seawater channel and the vaporiser structure which you see behind me, over the next few months we'll do various other civil works. We will also build more of the foundations for equipment, buildings, shelters, paving and assembly of the precast concrete substation buildings.